Hello. I'm going to introduce two lectures for next week. The first one is the video essay lecture, number 4 on video formatting, editing. And the second is the ethnographic methods, lecture 4.1, the first lecture of the ethnography module. So first of all, I'll download this. So for video format and editing, for the class, for this class, I plan to watch videos on some videos on video editing together with them, and then talk briefly about the milestone 4 requirements, and then at the that for 30 minutes, and then give them 20 minutes to work in teams to choose and critique a video essay, and then starting at the 50-minute mark with about 25 minutes of class left, then each team can present for 5 minutes or so what they found. So about 30 minutes of lecture and about 45 minutes of teamwork and presentations. So this is the 5-paragraph essay to storyboard to 3 acts. We talked about this in the script in the video lecture number 3. This is just review. And for some of my classes, we watched these structure and style videos. These are writing, both about writing and writing style, the structure of the video essay and the style. And then format was for the visual format, and this is the overview. Some classes didn't watch this one yet, so this is very short, but it shows some interesting ways to do animation, even with simple like PowerPoint slides. Just the idea of this video is to show that very clean format, very minimalist. So it's about 3 minutes long. It's a fun video. This is a 15-minute video about actually how to make a video essay. I'll show you. He has a 10-step process here. I skipped these sections, section 3, 5, and 7. He goes into a lot of detail. Section 3, finding video footage. This is not relevant for our students because they already have content. And background music, I watch a little bit of this, but then he goes into a lot of detail about this and also about number 7. That's not, if the students want to look at that, again, they can watch it. But I'll just show you briefly. I hope the sound is working.
What if you could learn everything there is to know about filmmaking in one single location, taught by leading professionals in the film industry?
Okay, so this is
In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a simple video essay. This is the exact process I use to make my video essays.
So it's a 10-step process, and he introduces those steps here. Let's see.
Use and works good with my workflow. And I'll link to top mic if you're in a essay. Be patient. Script, read like it's conversational.
Okay, so here about at the 3-minute mark, he jumps into the first step. Write a script. You can see the chapters here at the bottom. So write a script, record a rough voiceover. This is a really important step for them before they do the final voiceover to help line up the material. This is why I asked them to do a rough voiceover in milestone 3 along with their script. So they've already done these. And then number 3, find video footage. I skipped this section. It's so long and not very relevant. Skip step 4. Input the video footage. This is good. This is helpful. Find background music. I skipped this part. Step 6, final voice over. I watch this. Step 7, I watch a little bit of this, but then I stop once he starts talking about the specific software. If they want to use the software, they can watch this video alone by themselves. Then this section, step 8, is very helpful. He talks about
music all
transitions.
set. It's time to finish editing. You don't need to be a fan or fade to black, where one clip fades to black before the next clip fades in from black. These are all extremely simple transitions that will likely be in any video.
So he talks about different types of transitions, no transition, cross dissolve, fade to black, which are just simple kind of transitions between content, visual content. So this is helpful. He talks about creating a thumbnail if they're going to post it on YouTube, which is like this thumbnail. And lastly, posting, uploading, and sharing. So this is just a helpful nuts and bolts video about that. I have a very short video, maybe 1 minute, on how to make YouTube chapters. YouTube chapters are these things at the bottom of the screen where the timeline is broken up. Step 1, step 2, step 3. So this video, it's only like 2 minutes, 1 minute long, but it explains how to make the chapters. So I will watch that. And then I cover the milestone 4, basically, you know, they will combine the content from their audio and video storyboard with the audio recording, the voiceover. They'll render the video. And then as they upload their video to YouTube, if they can create a thumbnail if they like, they can make it public or private. I encourage them to make it public, but if they want to make it private, that's fine. As long as they, give me the link. They can add chapters to these, chapters at the bottom of their video to break it up if they like. That's optional, of course. And then submit the link in Moodle. So they'll upload this to YouTube, and then in Moodle here for this video essay draft number 1, all they have to do is upload the YouTube link. That's it for that. So there's no other submission, nothing else to submit. So that's the requirement for milestone 4. And then after they submit it, I tell them that we're going to watch each other's video essays in class and get feedback. I will give them feedback. I will grade them. Their grade might be lower than they expected, but they will have a chance to resubmit the video essay during the final exam period. So that's the first 30 minutes of class. Next, I move on to this activity where the teams are going to choose and critique a video essay based on these formatting content, the editing elements. So I have several playlists of video essays. Let me just show you. This, for example, this is a playlist about, this is my favorite video essays. It's a playlist by Sonia. The topics are games, like video games, politics, and philosophy. So she has like Totoro, the original Mario Brothers. So these are all video essays about, some of these are political, like The Sims as anti-capitalist critique. So they can choose one of these, or Guide to Absurdism, The Philosophy for Living Fully. So each of these is a video essay anywhere from 5 minutes to 1 hour. Here's another one. This is a playlist of video essays about hoaxes and conspiracies. There's a playlist about anime and music. So I'll show you. So these are all about just like Japanese culture and anime. Marvel, Disney. So there are these are different playlists of video essays. What I want them to do is get together in their video essay teams and choose one video essay from one of these playlists. So I just, they can pick any playlist they want. And let's say I want this one, why Shrek 2 is the perfect sequel. Right? So they can choose that video essay, and then for about 20 minutes, they'll watch it. They may not have time to watch the whole video essay, but they'll watch it for 20 minutes and they will critique the editing. So they're going to look at audio features like the voiceovers, the soundtracks, sound effects, and visual features like if they like the YouTube thumbnail, the images, the use of images and video, the transitions. So up until this point, we have looked at, we have thought about the social science argument and data or evidence, and then how to organize it into an essay, and then how to write the script. Now today's exercise, we're looking specifically at the editing content, and the reason why I want them to do this is because so they'll edit the video essay, but within their groups, and then they'll be watching this like on their cell phones or something, and then it's the first step 3. In the last 25 minutes, we'll have the teams present 5 minutes each. And what should they present? Each team should present, they should find 3 to 4 examples of these things, good or bad. They should note the beginning and end times. So for example, let's say they're watching this.
Do you ever just look at your recent videos and say, I may have gone too far in a few places? Because, yeah, sometimes it seems...
Okay, so maybe they're showing this and they think, oh, I don't like that. It's too, it's too silly or something. So then they can mark the time. Like this is at the 5-second mark, from 3 seconds to 10 seconds or something. So if whatever the element that they want to mention, whichever of these elements they want to talk about, they can note the beginning and start time, the start and end times. And then have a brief explanation, what they like about it or don't like about it, and then what are they going to do in their video for that, if it's an image that they didn't like, or what are they going to do instead, right? Or for example, transitions. Let's say
seems like all I ever do is complain. Mostly about Disney, huh? Go figure. But let's be positive for a change. In fact, let's talk about why Shrek 2 is actually one of the greatest sequels of all time. No, I'm not memeing you. I'm dead serious.
Okay, maybe this movie just has like too many images, like too quickly, right? And they're just transitioning like boom, 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 too fast, and they don't like that, right? So that's one example of something, and they can show these first 20 seconds, and then say, look, we think they use too many images. They should just, use fewer images and stay on them longer. And that's what we would do in our video. So that's like one example, and then they can have 3 or 4 examples of aspects of editing that they like or don't like. So it's just to get them to kind of think about the editing elements before they actually start editing their own videos this week. So this is the video essay lecture number 4. So I'll pass that over to you, and then message me if you have any questions about that. Okay. The second lecture is lecture 4.1 on ethnographic methods. Okay. I start by talking about Latour. Bruno Latour is a philosopher. He talks about the idea here that I tried to communicate is that a lot of social science is trying to find explanations, causes, and effects. But sometimes when the rate of change in society is very fast, like causal explanations are too advanced, and instead we need to just ask what's happening, and then after we know what's happening better, then we can try to explain why. So ethnography is, I think, less about causal explanations and more about description, but description is an important part of the social science process. And I give an example here. This Chinese sociologist, Fei Xiaotong, has this idea about when the rate of change in society is very fast, is very slow, then the wisdom of elders, for example, is very valuable because the kind of social science or understanding about the world, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, is still relevant today if the rate of change is slow. But if the rate of social change is fast, then the experience of elders, for example, is less valued because the world that they grew up in is very different from the world now. So this is just an example that I like from Fei Xiaotong, emphasizing this kind of fast social change versus slow social change, and the importance of ethnography in our contemporary world where the rate of change is very fast. For example, like elderly people don't know how to use cell phones oftentimes, and the younger generation has to teach them how to use it because the technology is moving so quickly. So, and then I shift to make the similar point about the scientific method, which, where we start with a research topic area usually, and then we form hypotheses and test with an experiment or measure and do statistical tests, analyze the data, report the conclusions, but then we start with this observations and questions, but where did the observations and questions come from? They don't only come from prior scientific studies. Sometimes they come from outside of the scientific process. So, where do we look to find inspiration about what to study? And so, I can't remember why I put these pictures up. But here I just say this is a difference between positivism and interpretivism. And the first three modules that we looked at, historical comparative analysis and experiments and statistical observation, most of these are most often used with this epistemological paradigm of positivism, which is that the world is observed world reality is observable through the empirical world, and if we just measure and observe it, then we can understand reality. Whereas interpretivism has the viewpoint that the same set of facts, of social facts, can be interpreted or understood in many different ways. And so this is another valuable reason, another reason why ethnography is important, because it allows researchers to get different points of view about social facts. That there's not just one correct way of interpreting social facts, and depending on who we're studying, they might interpret these situations differently. So I mentioned this, and then I jump into this. I show this brief video about ethnographic research. This is actually from industry, not from social science. So I kind of like it. They're talking about user experience, UI UX experience, but they mention all the relevant many of the relevant topics. So I'll just show this to you briefly. I won't watch the whole thing, but
Hey, listen. There's one 4-word question that you must absolutely never ask a woman if you want her to.
Welcome back. Our topic for this episode is going to be ethnographic research.
So you can see it's about 3 minutes, and he talks about um, introduces some different concepts, acts, behaviors, observation, goals. So anyways, you can watch this. What I pull out of this video afterwards is 3 concepts. The video mentions saturation, personas, and experience map. Saturation is the idea that we keep doing observation or interviews or whatever until we start to hear the same story again and again and again. So once we hear the same stories, kind of, if you interview 10 people and then the 11th person doesn't give you any additional helpful information, then maybe you've reached saturation and you kind of understand the dynamics of the thing you're studying. And then personas are kind of ideal types of like characters or roles in a given setting or scenario. So ethnographers will often identify like personas or ideal types of people or roles. For example, for example, in an orphanage, you might have the administrators are one persona and the orphans are another persona, and the parents who are not present are another persona. So teachers are another persona. So these are kind of roles or whatnot within a given like institution or kind of context, social context that you're looking at. And then the experience map is kind of the network or relationships and understandings of each of these personas, also called an empathy map. So the words persona and experience map are used more in industry, and in social sciences, we talk more about ideal types and empathy map, but they're pretty much the same concept. And then I also, from this video, I talk about the methods. There's observation and participation. This is kind of the best. And then if we don't get the information we need here, then we can get information from unstructured interviews. And all this time we're taking notes and creating our database. So these are 3 kind of methods that we use when we're doing ethnography. And then I shift to talk about 3 types of ethnography: fieldwork, digital ethnography, and photoethnography. So with fieldwork, this is kind of all the way back from, kind of 19th century anthropology, living with the natives, all the way to kind of present day ethnographies of, modern workplaces, or even kind of participant observation in, social events such as like Comic-Con or these kinds of things. So, or like communities, like niche communities. So this is these are all different kinds of or ways that we can do field work. I give some examples. This is Sarah Goffman, Alice Goffman, who's the daughter of a very famous sociologist, Irving Goffman. And she did her PhD at Princeton, and while she was studying at Princeton, she lived in inner city Philadelphia and was dating a gang leader, and did her ethnography while observing like her boyfriend getting arrested by the police. Often, this is not her boyfriend, but this is just an example of the interactions between white police and Black residents of Philadelphia. So this is a recent, very famous kind of ethnography. Another kind of infamous ethnography is written by Anne Allison, who was interested in this corporate masculinity in Tokyo hostess clubs. So she's an American woman who worked in a Japanese hostess club for a few years as part of her fieldwork, and then wrote this book about it. So you have for each of these instances, you can talk about the personas and the experience map. So here the personas are, maybe the hostess servers, the hostesses, the club owners, the corporate, like customers. So these are kind of the three main personas in this setting. And then the experience map, you can imagine what are the different types of relationships between the hostesses and the club owners, the relationships between the club owners and the guests, the relationship between the guests and the hostesses. And you would kind of, as an ethnographer, you would kind of characterize those relationships or experiences or kind of understandings and interactions between the people in those different in those different roles in these particular social settings. So and then here Irving Goffman, father of Alice Goffman, he did the same thing in asylums. He identified several different personas in the asylums, like mentally ill patients and doctors and guards, or psychiatrists and guards, and also the family members of these patients. And then he talked about these kind of 5 stages of that when people are placed in a mental institute, how they kind of acclimate to society's kind of calling them like mentally ill, and how they come to assume the role of a mental patient. But initially they are very resistant to this. So anyway, so this is another example of a persona. You can use the personas and empathy map to talk about kind of mental health institutions. And lastly, nickel and dimed, or not lastly, but nickel and dimed, Barbara Ehrenreich took she's a professor. She took 2 years, spent 2 years of her life working minimum wage jobs in America. And, this is another example of this fieldwork kind of participant observation, and talked about poverty in America. And lastly, I talked about my research, where I did participant observation during a South Korean election, and observed and interviewed members of the political parties participating in these elections. So these are all different settings for field work. If you have examples that you want to talk about, or books or personal research experiences, you could insert yours here instead of these ones, just to talk about field work. And you can use, again, I'm just using these as examples to talk about these concepts of personas and experience map, and also the different types of methods that the ethnographers would have used, and maybe something about, specifically about these experience maps, like what are the relationships between the different personas in these settings. For example, with nickel and dime, like the relationship between low-wage workers and their family members and their managers and so on, and their co-workers. Okay, the second type of ethnography is digital ethnography, and I mentioned this covers like blogs, following blogs and kind of posting sites, bulletin board sites, communities. It could be, following communities or social networks, like in Instagram groups or whatnot, following influencers on YouTube, following people on Twitter. You could create an app to actually monitor, to have participants actually input their data, like daily journals and things, to kind of get a better idea of their experience. So you can actually, some researchers have actually created apps to do this. And then even nowadays, even using the Internet of Things to get like digital data about people's kind of daily life or experiences at home or with their built environment. So these are all examples of ways that we can do digital ethnography. I give one example of a researcher who studied ex-cons, convicts who were released from prison. She had them use an app to track their applying for jobs. How hard was it for them to get jobs within the first, I don't know, 3 months of coming out of prison. And so, and every day they would record, like, it was kind of a diary of like their, whether they applied for jobs, whether they got a job, whether they lost that job. And she was trying to understand what she found that there were different personas of ex-convicts. Some ex-convicts got jobs right away and were very stable. Some ex-convicts got jobs off and on and were not stable. Some ex-convicts never got jobs at all. So she, in the end, she used this app data and her ethnography with these convicts to assess, like, to determine that there were 3 different kind of general ideal types or personas of ex-convicts in their, like, in terms of how they were able to get a job when they came out of prison. And then she kind of explained, like, why each one of them, what their backgrounds and what kind of led to those outcomes. Another example, this is using the Internet of Things, using like GPS tracking on vehicles. But you could see, for example, on the left-hand side here, you have luxury brands like Audi and BMW, Lexus, Mercedes-Benz. On the right-hand side, you have kind of middle-class brand names like Ford, Chevy, Toyota, Honda. And if you live in I give the example of living near Stanford in Palo Alto. In the morning, the luxury brand vehicles would leave that neighborhood and go to the city for work. And the middle class and lower class brand vehicles would come into Palo Alto to perform, low wage service jobs like house cleaning and landscaping and baristas at coffee shops and whatnot. And then in the evening, these cars would leave the neighborhood and these cars would return to the neighborhood. And so I use this because it's an example of how you can use this kind of Internet of Things or digital tracking, right? GPS data, for example, to show who is occupying a space at a given time. And we might think about wealthy neighborhoods like Palo Alto, Stanford neighborhood as a very wealthy neighborhood, but during the day, that neighborhood is occupied largely by lower income people who are working there. And the wealthy people, many of the wealthy people who live in that neighborhood are not actually occupying that space during the day. And then at night, these 2 populations kind of switch places or move again. So this kind of digital ethnography gives us some interesting ways about seeing, like, who occupies what spaces or how people are moving through different spaces and interacting with their environments. And it gives us insights, and it kind of muddies the question of who lives here, or where do you live if you're wealthy, where do you live if you're poor. And the answer is, if you're poor, you might actually spend most of your waking hours in a wealthy environment, in some kind of service or employment capacity. But then at night, then you kind of retreat back to like a poorer neighborhood. So anyways, this is all, you can get all of this from just digital data. It's a kind of ethnography though. And lastly, I show this photo ethnography. This is a cute video. I think it's 5 minutes. I watched this with the class. The reason why photo ethnography, so basically in this video, some researchers give some cameras to like high school students, and then the high school students take photos of things, and then they they're asked to explain, like, why did you take this photo? What does it mean to you? The value of photo ethnography is that as ethnographers when we are making observations, these observations are often informed by our values, our perspectives, our interpretations. So even as an ethnographer, if I'm, Alice Goffman in Philadelphia, my interpretation of these events is coming out of my values, my perspectives, and even Barbara Ehrenreich, her observations are coming out of her values, her perspective, her interpretations. But with methods like photoethnography, we defer the observation to the people who are these participants themselves. And so if you're allowing other people, the participants, to take photographs and make comments about their own life, now instead of your values, your perspectives, your interpretations as the researcher, we're seeing the values, perspectives, and interpretations of the people whose lives we're interested in. So photoethnography is one way to let subjects identify what is important to them and interpret why it's important to them. And it's really interesting as you watch the video. You see people taking photographs. Initially, like you don't understand, like, why did you take that photograph? Why is it valuable to you? And then as they explain it, you realize, oh, this actually has a lot of meaning. And if you were the researcher in this environment, you may not have ever understood that or guessed that. So epistemologically, methods like photoethnography help to really uncover the values and perspectives and interpretations of the people who we are observing, or whose world we want to understand. And I close by saying that the following 3 lectures are going to look at ethnographies of personality, poverty, and elite politics. So that is lecture 4.1. Okay, I'll send this out to you as well. And please let me know if you have any questions.